Well, everyone, we're starting with the commodification of the magical girl by rimbuk. And yeah, magical girls are like probably one of the most endemic genres of anime. But probably really, it's more like pandemic rather than endemic. But yeah, in the past like 30 years or something, like probably longer than that, like literally every single permutation of magical girls has been attempted. From the good to the bad to the downright ugly. And of course, in our capitalist organization of the economy, in our capitalist society, that also means that every single permutation of commodification has also been attempted. And we're gonna be checking that out and see some, like, I guess, some deep dive into that. Presumably, I haven't watched this video, so I don't totally know. I don't actually know what's in it. So maybe, hopefully, I haven't. Hopefully, my little spiel at the beginning there wasn't totally out of whack with the video. But yeah.
Magical Girls. We all know them. We all love them. At least if you clicked on this video, you probably love them. If not, you at least know of them. I would hope so. But if you don't, Magical Girls have been around
And that
since
would
the
be that would be interesting. Like you're just YouTube, just scrolling through your feed, and like this is how you learn about the existence of magical girls. I think at this point, like even if for at least for like the past several generations or two, like even if you don't know anything about anime, things like Sailor Moon were some of the most popular anime rounds. They're on. Like worldwide, like they're on the level of like things like Dragon Ball and like Power Rangers as Japanese media. That's sort of it's just spot spread across the globe. So if you don't know what magic girls are, and you've been living under a rock, basically.
60s, inspiring young girls and women alike as a source of empowerment. Magical Girls fight crime and save the world all while looking stylish and chic. Being hyperfeminine is often seen as a weakness, but popular shows like the iconic Sailor Moon showed that leaning into your feminine side is empowering, not degrading.
Oh, and as always, I got a little notes app here in case I have any thoughts that are like any seeds of thoughts that I can't like expand on right away, but want to save for the end of the video so I don't forget about them.
Unfortunately, a lot of magical girl series now are catered towards the male gaze. That's never once happened in our society. Fragmented shots of their bodies
Yeah,
while
got that
transforming,
right.
often done naked. Objectify the magical girl to titillate the male viewer, not to empower the woman viewer.
That does make me wonder how exactly. Because I've also seen the naked part of the magical girl transformation. Yeah, I've seen over the years. I've seen plenty of anime and even some hentai that have magical girl transformations. I've seen every every combination of like titillating versus just Barbie doll anatomy. And it does make me wonder how did that start. Obviously there's Sailor Moon, which I've never really seen a full episode of, so I don't know exactly what the transformations look like. But I'm wondering, did they start when they started out? Were they more on the titillating end of the spectrum, or more on like the safer work spectrum? And how's that changed over the years and whatnot?
Women are already so often objectified in anime. Why can't Magical Girls series be a safe place away from that? How did iconic shows tailored towards women like Sailor Moon turn into a site of male fantasies with shows like Cutie Honey and Madoka Magica? Anime.
Wait, is I mean is I mean yeah, Kitty Honey, I can agree with the male fantasy label. But is Monica Magica? So I've definitely heard criticisms and complaints that Gen Urabuchi, the main writer and creative, like I guess lead behind the series, definitely had some let's say antiquated ideas about women and femininity that kind of leaked into his portrayal of the characters and the plot and stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if necessarily side of male fantasy is like the best way to describe those criticisms. But
Fantasies with shows like Cutie Honey and Madoka Magica. Anime series are often labeled according to their intended demographic. Magical Girl series typically fall under the label of shoujo. Shoujo literally translates to girl, thus naming the series' intended audience. There's also labeled Josie, which translates to woman
no,
or woman,
josei. But yeah,
thus labeling the intended demographic.
I won't. As a consummate weeb, I won't hold people to that kind of ridiculous standard of knowing the whole Japanese pronunciation IPA type shit.
As adult woman. There unfortunately aren't a lot of Josie Magical Girl series. The manga Magical Angel Creamy Mommy and the Spoiled Princess.
Yeah, I think that there not being a lot of magical girl series aimed at adult women, i.e. the josei audience, is partly related to like the way that magical girls are supposed to be, at least in their main inception and conceptualization. They're mainly supposed to be the idealization of young women. Like I mean, if you've as someone who knows a little Japanese and who's read, their fair share of hentai, like the female equivalent of like dote, which is like virgin in Japanese, is just shoujo. Like they don't call a female virgin a dote, at least in the hentai. I mean, I'm sure that's probably the case in non hentai media, but I mean, when they refer to a female virgin, they will often say shoujo, and like, so I mean, basically what I'm saying is like a lot of these magical girls, a lot of these maho shoujo are essentially like they're not magical girls, they're magical virgins basically. They're like freaking Vestal virgins from like Mesopotamian religion or whatever. And because of that, once you stop being a shoujo, you can't really be a magical you can't be a magical girl. There have been I think even in recent years anime that sort of explored that that cultural like fence, whatever, like that idea that once you become a woman, you can't be, you're not a girl anymore, and therefore you can't be a maho shoujo. But
Princess is one of the few Josie Magical Girl series. The Spoiled Princess is a sequel to the classic shoujo series Creamy Mommy, the Magic Angel. On the flip side, there is also shonen, which translates to boy, and seinen, which translates to young man or young men. Very popular magical girl series Madoka Magica can easily be misinterpreted as a Josie, considering its focus on female protagonists and adult darker themes. However, it's technically a seinen, as its intended demographic are young men.
yeah, the male gaze, aka the otaku audience, yeah, that's 99% of the time that's basically just a 1-to-1 conversion. But
the amount of magical girl series fall under the demographic of shonen or seinen.
maybe it's a little bit different in the Japanese context, because there are plenty of female otaku. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what the exact proportions like break down to, but I mean, I don't know. I've definitely seen. I mean, if you watch VTubers, you know the otaku women there are just as crazy as the male otaku, as the men otaku.
With otaku culture as a key contributor. Otaku culture has been a lasting butterfly effect on the magical girl genre, playing a significant role in the commodification of the genre. But what is the otaku, and how have they greatly impacted the genre? Kumiko Saito, in her frequently cited essay on the magical girl, discusses the otaku audience, the rise in male viewers within the magical girl genre. Or women, but usually men. The otaku audience has been around since the 80s. Otaku culture is typically characterized by being attracted to bisoujo characters or beautiful girl characters. Bisoujo later created moe, which means having a strong attraction and feelings for cute and young anime, manga, and/or video game characters. The term otaku is used differently in the West. It's used as a way to say that you're a die-hard fan of anime. You're more than a weeb, an average fan. You're an otaku, the top of anime fans. However, the original definition of otaku is much, much different. Otakus take original material and make their own meaning out of it, usually fetishizing the material and characters in the process. Interestingly, otaku culture ties back to postmodernism as it's a practice in reusing images and ideas. There's no new stuff happening in otaku culture. It's all recycled ideas and images.
Yeah, that's I believe that was the sort of core of that famous like Hayao Miyazaki quote that anime was a mistake. Either it was him or it was Hideaki Anno, the creator of Evangelion. He was speaking about how, I mean, I think we can all agree that anime is, a lot of the ideas coming out of the anime and manga sphere are very incestuous. They're very inbreed. The inbreeding is like it would give a European monarch, it would make them blush. Like, it's crazy. It's as if they are terrified of any sort of real innovation and originality. I mean, to be fair, if you look to a lot of the big, like sort of mainstream media coming out of the West, we're talking about like Hollywood and the like. The inbreeding there, the recycling, the reboots, like 3 years after the last take on an IP, are like they people have been saying they got out of hand like 10 years ago, and nothing has happened to like reel them in at all. Like at this point, it's gotten even worse. I mean, maybe I stopped watching a lot of movies and television ages ago because it's so often that kind of remakes and stuff like that. So maybe I'm out of touch, but yeah.
Otaku's reuse and fetishization of characters removes the character's central meaning and instead makes their importance based around visual cues. The otaku audience is attracted to what the characters imply. A bisoujo exposed woman implies that she's sexually available and easy. A moe young cute girl implies that she's innocent and too trusting. So when I say male gaze, in this context, I'm referring to men or women who participate in otaku culture, and I will be using it interchangeably with otaku gaze. How does this relate to magical girls? Animation studios found that creating magical girl series and characters that attract an otaku audience provide the studios profit. Doing so allows them to create and sell suggested figures for merchandise, even if the scene is depicting does not actually happen within the series. A popular example of magical girl series targeted towards men is Cutie Honey. When the bisoujo character, Cutie Honey, fights and transforms, her clothes are often ripped off, thus interrupting the narrative.
That's a crazy.
Cutie Honey was so popular that it has had several spin-offs and remakes. Even though the original series debuted in the 70s, the otaku audience did not start to become noticeable to studios until the 80s. The success of Cutie Honey and similar series that objectify women demonstrated to studios that accommodating to otaku audience rather than women provides them with profitable outcomes. So, sexualizing characters give money, not sexualizing characters and empowering women instead does not bring money. Some of the first magical girl series, such as Creamy Mommy, exemplified the belief that the magical girl's true goal becomes the eternal deferral of growth and their task to be just cute and young. Magical girl series from the 70s and
that's like a kind of a. This is basically what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about how in the kind of stereotypical conception of Japanese girlhood versus womanhood, you kind of becomes kind of the logical conclusion that you would have to. The magical girl's true goal kind of has to become eternal eternal deferral of growth. You know, like they have to be just cute and young, because if they become a woman, then they can no longer be a shoujo. And I mean, hell, like in that context, it does make the main kind of the central conflict of Magical Magica a lot more. I mean, I can see why Genro Wujigato's criticism, because he's basically saying that if you become a woman, you become a witch. But
for deferral of growth and their task to be just cute and young. Magical Girls series from the 70s and 80s focused on young, cute girls who use magic to turn into teenage girls. At that time, it was a common trope for the series to end with the magical girl giving up her magic as she has realized that her true magic is her shoujo, aka her girlhood. Her adolescence is free of any obligations and expectations. She's not expected to get married, have kids, have a career, own a home, while denying adulthood is a rebellion against the expectations of women in Japanese society. Focusing on the magic of childhood also highlights and encourages moe from the viewer, as young girls are now seen as the ideal. While
I mean, yeah, to be fair, you know, anyone who has played or seen Let's Plays of the recent Silent Hill game, I don't remember the exact name of it, but I mean, you know, anyone who's played those things, they know why a lot of you know, why a story like this, the kind of plays these ideas of, well, you know, deferral of becoming an adult, especially an adult woman, and getting the responsibilities of adult womanhood. You know, why it would be really appealing to not get in all that mess. I mean, hell, you know, us Westerners are certainly seeing that in our own way. I mean, ignoring the kind of silly and often delusional accusations from boomers, and especially the you know, the wealthy types who are always talking about how young people these days they're not buying diamond rings anymore. They're not buying houses at a young age anymore because of not because they don't have the money to afford, you know, these sort of simple basic necessities. But no, it's because they don't want to grow up because they weren't raised right or something like that. But ignoring that nonsense, there's a lot of reason why people all around the world, at least all around the first world, I won't speak for other parts of the world, do not want to take on the kind of shit responsibilities of being an adult in the late stage capitalism world.
Against the expectations of women in Japanese society. Focusing on the magic of childhood also highlights and encourages moe from the viewer, as young girls are now seen as the ideal. While series like Creamy Mommy are not directly explicit, they're full of sexual innuendos. I mean, like that title.
Yeah, I was
They also
I didn't want to make the joke. It felt like low hanging fruit, but I was like, Creamy Mommy.
make use of the bank system. Bank system is the reuse of frames to help save money. This again goes back to postmodernism, just the reuse of images over and over again. Nothing new is happening here. In Magical Girl series, this technique is often used for the transformation sequence. This use of the bank system, Girl series, just the reuse of images.
I don't know. Is it? I mean, like I've never heard described as the bank system, but the idea of reusing, you know, either stills or animation sequences, generally to save money and save time isn't that? You know, that seems very, you know, logical in, you know, a very reasonable time saving trick when animating is generally very, you know, very, very time intensive, labor intensive. So, you know, being able to avoid having to animate, say, even just a second of animation, which, you know, could have anywhere from, depending on the frame rate, you know, anywhere from like several to like a dozen individual images. So being able to avoid that seems very reasonable. I'm not sure if I would call it postmodernist. I mean, it might be. I don't know that much about postmodernism, so I mean, for all I know, that could be an accurate description of it.
over and over again. Nothing new was happening here. In Magical Girl series, this technique is often used for the transformation sequence. This use
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, this is that Magical Girls transformations and other sorts of transformations in anime. I mean, those are like sort of those are famous poster child examples of the so-called bank system. Whereas, like, I mean, yeah, honestly, I think nowadays a lot of people treat it as kind of a fun or like something to look forward to. I don't know, because it is one of the most iconic elements of these types of stories. So,
system highlights the.
I mean, I guess the way I phrase that made it sound like she's criticizing this, and I'm sort of arguing or pushing back against the criticism. But based on just what she's written so far, I don't know if she's criticizing the bank system or not. But
of an innocent moe character into a seductive bsky character, thus appealing to the otaku gaze. So we got moe, and then we got bsky. Boom, we got both parts of the otaku gaze in one in the OG Magical Girl series, like Creamy Mommy. It is important to note that both Cutie Honey and Creamy Mommy anime were made by men. Go Nagi created Cutie Honey, and Studio Parrot, which was founded by Yuji Nunakawa, created Creamy Mommy. Representations in popular culture created by and aimed at men have depicted girls as symbolic of modernity and changing mores, as alluring but dangerous and threatening to masculinity, the family, and to the nation itself. Magical girls reject modernity and therefore become a threat to men, as she has rejected marriage and a family. In response to this threat, animation studios took advantage of the otaku culture and created magical girls who are considered bsoujo and or elicit feelings of moe for male audiences. Portraying women for the otaku gaze takes away women's threatening power toward men, thus taking away her original meaning and changing her to just a source of voyeurism and pleasure. With otaku,
I mean, yeah, that is a very common phenomenon. I mean, we don't even have to talk about in the context of like in these sort of patriarchal contexts, like men versus women, like even in more for some reason I want to say neutral, but it's not neutral anyway. But in context of like social change and like a subculture trying to change the dominant culture, it's very common for the dominant culture to sort of assimilate and neutralize the effect of the subculture trying, the subculture's attempts to make some sort of lasting and fundamental change. It's very, well, I mean, like I said, it's very common. And so I'm not surprised that the very, male-dominated society, arguably in some ways more patriarchal society of Japan was, found these ways to kind of take women empowerment and make it into something amenable to, society.
Culture in full force. How did women take back the genre? The iconic series Sailor Moon played a strong part, as well as the cult classic Revolutionary Girl Utena. Sailor Moon didn't show up until the 90s, and when it did, it revolutionized the genre. The series popularized transformation sequences and created the standard of the magical girl power system. Sailor Moon changed the transformation formula to one of accessories and makeovers rather than physical change. Naoko Takeuchi, the author of Sailor Moon, and Toei Studios made hyperfemininity a positive rather than a negative. Hyperfemininity is often seen as a weakness. It's stereotypically used as a way to visually show that a woman character is not the brightest, she's not the smartest, not a lot going on in here, she's pretty. Sailor Moon flipped this stereotype on its head and made femininity empowering. As a woman, it is so awesome to see Sailor Scouts gain power from their jewelry and dresses. And I love jewelry and dresses, and they make me feel powerful. They make me feel so confident. So to see that represented with literal magical powers, love that. Iconic. Rather than looking down the Scouts for getting dressed up to fight crime, everybody looks up to them and sees them as heroes. This is illustrated in the diegesis, as within the show, it's canon that Sailor V has video games and movies about her, illustrating that people within the universe look up to the Scouts and idolize them. Additionally, Sailor Moon viewers look up to the Scouts as well. Despite the series premiering over 30 years ago, Sailor Moon merchandise, cosplay, museums can easily be found today. Sailor Moon's use of hyperfemininity is a rebellion against a stereotype that dressed-up women are dim-witted and unsuccessful. Revolution Girl Utena came out about 5 years after Sailor Moon's initial release. It's known for being a deconstruction of the magical girl genre by subverting common tropes and traditional gender norms. This series, while directed by a man, focuses on women's problems and encourages change around women's oppression. It follows Utena as she tries to save Anthe, the magical girl, from a cycle of oppression and abuse. In Utena, Anthe wants to give up her magic, but the men around her force her to keep it and use it to revolutionize the world. What it means to revolutionize the world is different from character to character, but for Akio, the main antagonist, that means to reclaim his lost power and control.
Yeah, I've never finished Revolution Go Utena, but I don't mind getting a bit of spoilers. But I mean, I guess if there are any viewers who are like, who are planning to watch this show, it's like almost 30 years old and haven't gotten to it. This is your warning, I
The
guess.
series ends with
A little
Utena
late,
saving
yeah.
Anthe. Anthe loses her powers and Utena disappears from the world. Interestingly, this goes back to the early Magical Girl series, as those end with their magic being given up. While those series focused on elementary age girls, Anthe is in high school, and the series ends with her leaving the school grounds to go to the outside world, the adult world, to search for Utena. The
They
true
even
magic
gave a little monkey mascot, the classic, like bag of all my possessions on their on them. Yeah.
for Anthe isn't her adolescence, but rather her
Oh my
adulthood
lord.
and freedom.
Okay, this came around the same time as Evangelion. I mean, I'm sure this is a famous composition in anime, but I was just surprised by the similarity between this, the shot and the positioning of the characters. With the famous scenes of Shinji walking into Misao's apartment. Very interesting because in that context, it was him, basically, in a sense, leaving the outside world to go home, basically. And in this situation, is like sort of, it was reverse. Anthe is kind of leaving home, high school, to go into the outside world, which is very, interesting. Interesting how maybe I'm reading it too much. Interesting how the boy leaves the outside world to go home, and the girl leaves home to go into the outside world.
That brings her. The true magic for Anthe isn't her childhood, it's her adulthood, and how that represents freedom and brings her new life choices and opportunities that her childhood didn't provide her. For Anthe, adulthood means being able to choose her own path in life, whether she wants to get married or not, what career to have. Anthe's life choices were made for her during adolescence, but now as an adult, she is truly free. Anthe's magic comes from her womanhood, not her childhood. This goes against what early Magical Girl series did, because their true magic came from their childhood and they rejected adulthood. Revolution Girl Utena is just so iconic. Again, it's a deconstruction of the series, especially showed in the ending with Anthe's rejection of her childhood and wanting to move on to adulthood. This really helps to empower both sides of girls.
Like, she even has like a Gendo style big ass room, like way too big, way bigger than anyone would reasonably need. Or, I don't know if that is Anthe or not, but I mean, this just another similar composition to Evangelion. I mean, it's okay. Clearly they weren't made, because I was wondering if the same people who did Eva also did Revolution Go Utena, but I mean, JC Staff is not Gainax, so I guess that makes it even more mysterious, the similarities.
He helps to empower both sides of girls and young women. Utena is for older women, and it makes them feel comfortable and safe in adulthood, knowing that not everything is going to be so horrible and bleak. They have their own choices they can make, and they will still have freedom, even if that freedom is different from the freedom that they had in their childhood. The struggles Anthony and Utena face are struggles that women face all around the world. Women are often viewed as threatening, but also desirable, and men mitigate that dichotomy by trying to control women. By defying Akio, rejecting the role of the passive princess, and struggling to free Anthony from her objectified role in the duels, Utena subverts the narrative assigned to her gender, refusing heterosexual primacy and tirelessly fighting for what can only be called feminist ends. This is seen through how Utena wears the boys' school uniform rather than the girls'. That's a rejection of the male gaze and the gender binary. Also seen through how she develops a queer relationship with Anthony.
I mean, to be fair, I don't. I mean, yeah, while there's a rejection of the male gaze, I mean, I will say she does rock the boys' outfit very well. So
feminist ends. This is
I mean, I'm not sure if the animators meant to do that, but
through how Utena wears the boys' school uniform rather than the girls'. That's a rejection of the male gaze and the gender binary. Also seen through how she develops a queer relationship with Anthony, a theme that is more overt in the retelling movie Adolescence of Utena. Utena and Anthony's relationship goes against the male gaze. They have labeled themselves as non-desirable for the otaku. Their visual cues are not for heterosexual romance. These actions from Utena, plus her final act of saving Anthony, is openly feminist as it encourages non-rigidity for magical girls and women. Utena acts as a warning. It shows the danger and harm of oppressing and objectifying women. Utena's encouragement for adulthood shows that adulthood in itself is magical in a different way than childhood. On the other end, Sailor Moon's hyperfemininity appeals to the female gaze rather than the otaku gaze. That adulthood in
I mean, yeah, that is a nice message because I mean, I mean, you know, despite what I said earlier about how crappy adulthood can be in a lot of ways, I mean, you know, it's definitely. I do feel like it's, you know, better to, how to phrase it, you know, better to have people believe that adulthood can be magical because, you know, if you know, if you're, how to say it, like, you know, pushing that message at all, you know, it's all, you know, you peak in high school and then it's all downhill from there, then people are way more likely to just accept the shitty status quo as, you know, just the way it's gotta be, and they're not gonna imagine that they can change things when it's the easiest. It only becomes easier to change things as you become an adult, as you get older and have more, you know, I don't know, just, yeah, you have more time to understand the world better.
Itself is magical in a different way than childhood. On the other end, Sailor Moon's hyperfemininity appeals to the female gaze rather than the otaku gaze. The Scout's visual cues are hard to be misinterpreted as a sexual reading. Their changing jewelry and clothes are symbols of power and agency for women, not one of fetishization. And yeah, while the Utena transformations can be argued as sexual, it focuses more on the feminine side of things rather than her body. It focuses more on her nails getting painted and then immediately putting gloves on. But we know her nails are painted, and that is awesome. When my nails are painted, which they're not right now, I feel so good about myself. Utena critiques the early Bisoujo and Moe magical girls by going against gender norms and deconstructing the genre through the acceptance of adulthood and the power of queer love. This dichotomy of some series being for the otaku gaze, some being empowering for women, and few deconstructing the genre stayed the relative norm. That is until Madoka Magica came out.
Yeah, there is definitely like a before Madoka Magica and like an after Madoka Magica, like a BMM and AMM in like the timeline of anime. I mean, probably not even just in the timeline of Magical Girl anime. Like the effects of that series almost certainly have rippled out towards like the furthest reaches of this anime production or anime tropes, at least, or whatever, in general.
Lasting fan favorite series, and it has left a noticeable, seemingly everlasting change on the magical girl genre. Madoka Magica changed the game. It opened the door for Magical Girl series to explore darker aesthetics and grittier themes. It's applauded for being a deconstruction of the Magical Girl genre through its critique and subversion of the typical beats the genre follows. Most importantly, the first 2 episodes start off as a typical Magical Girl anime, but the 3rd episode ends with the main character dying by decapitation. This surprise twist of brutal, unforgiving violence is what the series is most known for. And it's also seinen.
Most known
So,
for the people who, to like shallow viewers, but
yeah, cater towards men, not women. Because women don't like violence, not at all. Not like there's a bunch of women who love the MCU and stuff. Anyways, Madoka Magica takes advantage of moe. The characters' round faces portray them as cute, young, and innocent. The character design is meant to draw affectionate feelings for male viewers, and the dark, gritty, battle action themes reference similar themes seen in popular seinen series. The success and impact the series have had has caused so many Magical Girl series to be made for men. Following series like Magical Girl Raising Project from 2016 and Wonder Egg Priority from 2021 draw inspiration from Madoka Magica.
yeah, I think describing them as made for men is kind of underselling some of these. I mean, at least Magical Girl Raising side. I think there's one. I mean, wasn't that one kind of like just lampooned for being crazy, like over the top violent in the sense of like having taken the exact wrong, I guess, lessons from Magical Magic and being like, oh, okay, yeah, the way to be, subversive and innovative is to just have magical girls like fucking blowing each other away with like magical guns and shit, and like, no, that's, I mean, sure, there's a place for that kind of like splatter porn, gore porn, that stuff. I mean, again, it feels like kind of missing the point of Magical Magica. I don't know too much about Wonder Egg Priority, other than that I remember when it started, people were very excited about it, and then once it got towards the end, people were like, this is not it, Chief. This ending is kind of trash, it's like...
16 and Wonder Egg Priority from 2021 draw inspiration from Madoka Magica with similar character designs and the surprise of brutal violence. Honestly, today, if there is a new Magical Girl series that is not explicitly shoujo or a sequel to a past series, I am expecting the surprise twist of like brutal violence. Like, it's not surprising anymore because everything does it. I would honestly be surprised if it was normal. I would be more surprised if it was normal. While new Magical Girl series aimed at girls and women are continuing to be put out, the popular and most accessible in terms of viewing ability and merchandise availability in the West are Magical Girls made for the otaku.
Okay, I was planning to talk about like gushing over Magical Girls. I mean, what, I don't know. What, I mean, yeah. I mean, calling it otaku gaze is not beyond the pale. I mean, it's not an unreasonable thing to think. I'm not gonna like disagree with her on that front. But I mean, it is a story that kind of directly sort of takes on and like grapples with that idea of the virginal shoujo. How, I mean, like, I don't think I ever say it directly, but like, I mean, a big thing, one of the things that turns you from a shoujo to a from a girl to a woman, at least in the sort of Japanese construction of those terms, is sex. Like, I mean, like I mentioned, the shoujo is kind of just a synonym for, or kind of just the way of saying female virginity. So like, once you stop being a female virgin, you stop being a shoujo. But this is gushing over Magic Girls is basically playing with that like, I guess, definition or whatever, by having these girls basically do like BDSM on each other, and like it really really exploring their sexuality while still being magical girls. Like, they don't, like, in the story, like, it actually is the case that exploring and deepening your relationship with your sexuality actually makes you a more powerful shoujo. It's like a fucking shikai and bankai from Bleach, where like if you discover like a new fetish or whatever, or a new dimension to your kink, you like unlock your fucking like Getsu Tensho or whatever, Zangetsu or whatever. It's like I don't know. It's I mean yeah, like I said, it definitely does have have things for the woman enjoyers, whether they're male otaku or female otaku. Like they're definitely gonna enjoy some of the poses and the angles these girls are depicted from. But I mean, like I said, it is doing some subversive and innovative things with shoujo and virginity and sexuality and that kind of thing. And I mean, it even is very like I mean, despite what I said about the whole kink and fetish type stuff, I mean, the artist and creators of the series is like they have the opportunity to sexualize a like actual young like fucking like what 12-year-old girl, but they never do it. Like they constantly go out of their way to shield this young. Well, actually, she's not a magical girl. She's actually one of the villains, but they're basically all magical girls in terms of their powers. They go out of the way to shield that that actual young person, actual like little girl from both in the sense of the characters are shielding her from having to witness these things that are not appropriate for young people, but then also the author does not subject her to any of those any of these basically BDSM scenes. And like I mean, that's something that a lot of anime creators and artists and writers would not have the decency to do. So I mean, that's I don't know. Gushing Over Magic Girls has a lot going for it, is what I'm saying.
Madoka Magica popularized contemporary magical girl series that are aimed at men rather than women. Despite the male-centered outcome of Madoka Magica's success, it's a beloved series that deserves its praise. The series' popularity illustrates that.
I mean, definitely, and I mean, hell, the Sayaka Kyoko, well, I mean, I was gonna say their queer relationship, but then I totally forgotten about Homura and Monica. But both of those relationships have become. I mean, from what I've seen, I haven't looked too deeply in, but I mean, they're definitely, let's say the Tumblr ladies and other like, I guess lesbians of the world, they definitely taken a shine to that, and so regardless of whether Madoka Magica was made for men or women, there's definitely the girly pops have definitely made it their own in that sense.
Girls do not have to stay in the box of femininity with pink aesthetics and a more subdued violence. Audiences also like to see magical girls in brutal, action-packed situations. It's awesome to see a girl in a pretty dress in a guts and blood-filled action scene.
Yeah, that is a pretty iconic.
Cannot deny that.
It's juxtaposition and aesthetic.
Undertones, which ironically rejects the otaku gaze that the character designs elicit. Madoka's queerness allows the series to reach past the otaku audience and represent viewers who are part of a non-dominant, marginalized group. I don't believe the creators of Madoka Magica intended to create a ripple effect of male and otaku-centered magical girl series. Madoka Magica itself is pioneering in its feminist themes and representation despite its seinen demographic. Animation studios, unfortunately, jumped on the series' success with only profit in mind, not any intention of art for art's sake. So, what does this mean for the future of the magical girl genre? And has it been lost in the male gaze? Magical Girl started as a source of empowerment for young girls and is now a source of pleasure and fetishization for the otaku audience. With the success,
I do feel like this thesis does need a little more I guess work put into it, because it does feel a little bit like we went from A to C without the intermediary B. I don't necessarily disagree with the conclusion. I'm kind of like, okay, what's the reasoning that brought us, to this conclusion?
And fetishization for the otaku audience. With the success of Magical Girls series catered towards men, the genre is now founded on the expectation that the adult viewer has acquired a diachronic fan perspective to fetishize both the characters and the text meaning. It's expected.
Diachronic. I have not heard that word. I'm actually gonna do a quick look up because seems very interesting now. Not looking at this damn AI shit. Anyway. The meaning of diachronic is of relating to or dealing with phenomenon as they occur or change over time, and it's like contrasted. Might as well look here. There's a linguistic analysis. Well, okay, it started out as a linguistic analysis term, but how's it being used here? It's being used more as a media analysis term rather than linguistic analysis. But okay, so it's basically like a local versus non-local analysis of a thing. Which, I mean, yeah, that does seem to I guess match how it's being used here. So it's basically saying the new genre is founded on the adult viewer having basically a fan perspective. They're bringing a lot of stuff in already to the Magical Girls show that the creators are already taking into account and I guess working within, or maybe working around, maybe playing with. But in either case, there's not this expectation that they're going to approach the story on its own merits, as something that isn't already in conversation with a whole bunch of other either pre-existing or contemporary like art.
Perspective to fetishize both the characters and the text meaning. It's expected for the otaku viewer to gain sexual pleasure from Magical Girls. Contemporary Magical Girls series use pre-existing knowledge viewers have on the genre to create new, titillating experiences. So, Madoka Magica used pre-existing knowledge of the Magical Girl genre to do that surprise brutal twist of Mommy dying in the 3rd episode. However, despite Magical Girl series
that's
often
definitely
catering towards the top
inarguable
gaze,
there.
the grown-up feminine audience make their own positive representation out of the objectification. The female spectator enters in the polyamics of negotiation, exploiting textual contradiction to put into circulation readings that draw the text into female and/or feminist orbit. Adult women viewers make their own positive representation and/or enjoyment out of shonen and seinen Magical Girl series. There's endless fan art of Madoka and Homura in a relationship. Woman cosplays Cutie Honey. There's online forums of women viewers praising male-targeted series, and so much more. And yeah, I don't like how often Cutie Honey's clothes are ripped off during battle, and the camera angles are
it's definitely
meant for the male gaze.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is so awesome to see a woman so confident in her body and herself that being exposed does not stop her from fighting crime. And yeah, it is so frustrating that more often than not, a new Magical Girl series is catered towards men. But I'm also glad that we're getting new Magical Girl content in general. If we weren't getting any at all, then that would mean there's very slim chances of actually empowering Magical Girl series to come out again. But we're still getting them. So I believe in the near future, there will be a new original Magical Girl series aimed towards women. And I'm talking like specifically anime. There are new Magical Girl series coming out that are targeted towards women, such as the manga Magical Girl Dandelion. The series is accessible to read in the West on the Viz app, but it's not getting the same amount of praise and promotion as other new shonen series. The cost of a subscription to Viz, a digital shoujo and cozy manga library, is half as much as Shonen Jump, a digital library of shonen and seinen series. While I'm not complaining about the cheaper price, This does show that the mainstream popular audience desires male-centered stories more than women-centered stories. And this is most likely because the otaku audience brings in more revenue. So that's what the companies promote. And so that's what the mainstream audience is taught to like. You really have to go out of your way to find these series. A lot of people know about the Shonen Jump app. A lot of people do not know about the Viz app. You have to go out of your way to find magical girl shows on streaming services like Crunchyroll. Women-based audiences have been known to critique and push back against seductive shoujo merchandise. When a figure for the popular shoujo series Fruits Basket was announced with a clear line of sight of the protagonist's skirt, why would you do that to my girl? Leave her alone. Oh my god. So yeah, when that was announced, fans were obviously very angry. That's not what the show is about at all. It's not an ecchi. There's no fan service in the show. It does not just interrupt the narrative with shots like that when you're reading or watching it. So why would they make a figure like that? And fans were so angry and openly objected that they got the company to redo the design. So why do I bring this up? Shoujo and Josie series don't attract otakus, and therefore that means they make less money and get less promotion. When they do try to promote to the otaku audience, like with that figure, for example, they failed. People were angry, people fought back, and they had to change it, or else they weren't going to make sales to begin with. But unfortunately, that means since we fight back against that, they just stop making things for us. I love capitalism. All of that, it causes magical girl series for women to tend to go unnoticed by the mainstream market. And it feels like the genre is slowly dying with less series and merchandise coming out. I would love to see woman targeted magical girl series to be as equally as popular as battle shonen like One Piece. Like, can we please have a magical girl series on the front page of Crunchyroll rather than always being?
That would actually be really cool to have really a Maho Shoujo like equivalent or version of One Piece. Especially given its very socially conscious, socially aware theme. So in the context of Maho Shoujo and whatnot, that would be. I mean, I'm not sure it would be killer on the global stage, but I would definitely be interested in seeing something like that.
Shonen and seinen. I would also love to see a new shoujo or josie series that goes back to the magical girl roots. Less violence, more friendship and romance. So I don't need like military, brutal violence, blood and guts. No, I want something like Sailor Moon, but like that's not Sailor Moon. So yeah, I want a new shoujo or josie series that is new, rather than another spin-off or sequel series of a previous magical girl series. I want something new. I want something original. Media in general is not really doing that right now, and people are tired of that. But I feel like magical girls specifically are just constantly getting either for men or just like a sequel or a spin-off of a previous franchise. I want a new franchise. Magical girls are a fun escape from reality that also simultaneously represent women experience that are based in reality. They deserve the same amount of love and praise as popular shonen. The anime industry needs more women-based media. I don't think we're asking for too much here. I want a new magical girl series like Utena. I want a new magical girl series like Sailor Moon. But I just want it to have like similar themes and similar tropes and like similar aesthetics, but like a new story. Yeah, I love magical girls, and we need more that are for women. And that's how they started, and that's how it should end. Some things can be from women and marginalized groups.
So, yeah, I didn't realize it would end that quickly, but yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, I mean, certain segments of the online community might, recoil at the idea of taking these kinds of perspectives into account. But I always, as a lifelong writer and reader, I always appreciate hearing these kinds of things. What's missing in media and in the media and stories and whatnot. Trying to take that into account when creating my own work. I mean, at the very least, there's no reason to like alienate potential audiences like that. But I mean, I personally have a my own interest in just trying to I don't know if cater is the right word, but just it's an easy way to innovate at the very least. Just exploring these sorts of marginalized ideas. But often, I guess that it's the reason people don't do it a lot is because it's not very profitable. But just like I mean, he mentioned that as well near the end. But anyway, I mean that was rimbuk, very interesting. Might look into some of her other stuff. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Consider liking, commenting, maybe even subscribing. And if you're feeling particularly generous and of age in your country of residence, try visiting these links up in the corner. Anyway, here are some more videos to check out, and until next time, take care.